Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Vikings Latest. I'm your host, Cole Smith, and today we're going to talk about some more of the Vikings general manager candidates. A couple guys from the NFC West who have been young, kind of learned their way through the scouting ranks and building their way up through the front office, and what a general manager dynamic power structure could look like in 2026 for the Vikings. But first, we're going to start with the news of the day. Adrian Peterson, Vikings legendary running back, one of the best running backs in NFL history. He is going to be going to the Vikings Ring of Honor this season. He was surprised by John Randall, another Vikings legend, defensive tackle in the 90s. He was surprised by him when he was on set with Vikings writer for the Vikings.com website, Lindsey Young. Peterson, he was under the impression that he was just going to be going to TCO Performance Center in Eagan, Minnesota, to speak with the rookies at rookie minicamp last Friday, and he did do that. But he was also there, unbeknownst to him, to get inducted into the Ring of Honor, at least be told that he was going to at some point this season. Peterson was very emotional, very appreciative for the moment. It was super cool to have him do it with John Randall. Like Randall said, they're both guys from Texas, and just the way that they were both able to get to the Ring of Honor in different pathways. Peterson being the seventh overall pick in 2007, and John Randall being undrafted, but to end up in the same place was very cool. So Peterson, he was also surprised to see Kevin O'Connell and Rob Brzezinski. They went up and congratulated him. Brzezinski, of course, he was with the Vikings way back when. He's been with the team since '99, so he was there when Pearson was drafted. Then Kevin O'Connell, even though he didn't coach Pearson with the Vikings, he was on the Washington coaching staff back in 2018 and 2019, back when Pearson was still running for them. Pearson was actually still productive in those two seasons. He had over 1,900 yards rushing in his 2 years with Washington. Wasn't quite prime Adrian Pearson, but he was still pretty good. Really showed just how good he was, kind of just how tough he was physically. But super cool to see that moment as well for Peterson. Makes sense that Pearson's going to be going to the Ring of Honor. The numbers speak for themselves. 2,418 carries as a Viking for 11,747 yards and 97 touchdowns. He also added 241 catches for 1,945 receiving yards and 5 receiving touchdowns. His first career touchdown in the NFL was a receiving touchdown, 60 yards against the Falcons in 2007. If you remember, the defensive coordinator for the Falcons that day was Mike Zimmer. So kind of funny how that all kind of works out in the long grand scheme of things. Peterson, as a whole, had seven Pro Bowl appearances, seven-time All-Pro. He was the MVP as a rookie in the Pro Bowl game back when they actually played the Pro Bowl. Peterson apparently took that game way more seriously than anybody else because he was young, and that's just how he was wired. He was always 100 miles per hour. He said that Peyton Manning said that he was surprised by how serious Pearson took. Peyton said that he saw so many other players drinking Mai Tais, drinking beer while out there in Hawaii, back when the Pro Bowl was in Hawaii, while Pearson was just drinking water, and it paid off for Pearson. One game MVP. He also won a car because of that. Pearson, his best season, of course, was 2012, though, when he won NFL MVP. He's the last non quarterback to win MVP. He drug the Vikings to the playoffs. The Vikings went 10-6 because Pearson ran for 2,097 yards, nine shy of breaking Eric Dickerson's record. Pearson drug Christian Ponder to the postseason. Teams knew that Ponder just wasn't really effective, and they still couldn't stop Pearson. Pearson had three 200-yard games that season. He even capped the season with a 199-yard game against the Packers in a win and in scenario. Everyone in the stadium knew he was getting the ball, and they still couldn't stop him. He even set up the game-winning field goal in that game with a run that for those who remember, the 2012 Week 17 against the Packers was one of the best moments in the Metrodome. I loved it. Unfortunately, we lost the next game, but Peterson was a machine that game, that year, and as a whole for the Vikings. This is well deserved. Unless I missed it, they haven't announced exactly when the game is yet that he's going to be inducted, but we should be getting that soon. So I encourage you, if you haven't seen the video already of Peterson getting surprised by John Randall, check it out on YouTube. Check it out on Vikings.com. Well worth your watch, especially for those who remember watching Adrian Peterson. Kind of brought in a whole new generation of Vikings fans. The Vikings had been without Randy Moss for 2 seasons. We're kind of lacking that star power going into the 2007 draft, and ended up with Adrian Peterson kind of revitalized the fan base. Kind of funny that there was talk that the Vikings could potentially draft Brady Quinn because they needed a quarterback in that draft, and there were some people wondering if the Vikings should have gotten Brady Quinn instead of Adrian Peterson. So Vikings maybe would have made that mistake now if they had Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, but in the moment went best player available and it paid off. So congratulations to Adrian Peterson. I was in ninth grade when Peterson was a rookie, so very influential move in my fandom as well. So on to more pressing news, more contemporary news, more today news. Uh, is the general manager position remains, unfilled. Rob Brzezinski is still acting as interim GM. So Albert Breer of SI, he wrote about it. He said that there's two possibilities for the Vikings. He's not the first person to say this, but it makes me think that the Vikings are heading this way. He said either the Vikings just promote Rob Brzezinski to full time GM, which is a possibility, or the Vikings, elevate him within the organization, elevate Brzezinski, and then they hire a more football-y football guy to handle the personnel side of the organization. There's different dynamics throughout the league with teams doing this. The Lions do this with Brad Holmes acting as GM, but he works with somebody else. Les Snead with the Rams is acting GM, but he works with somebody else. Panthers, they kind of operate under the same structure. 49ers, to a degree, work under the structure. More on that here in a minute with how a couple of those teams do it. So it makes me think that the Vikings are really going to just give Brzezinski kind of a promotion and still hire somebody with a more traditional scouting background. Albert Breer, he even wrote about how it's no coincidence that the Vikings' 6 candidates that they added have scouting backgrounds. So a lot different than Rob Brzezinski, who has been with the team since 1999, but mostly has been well regarded for his capology, his cap specialty, working with money and making that stuff work. To accentuate that, you bring in somebody who can handle more of the football operations side, and then kind of mesh that all together with the vision of Kevin O'Connell, Brian Flores, among other coaches and the scouting staff. So yeah, Kevin O'Connell, he even saw this kind of different power dynamic in the GM when he was with the Rams back in 2020, 2021, when Les Snead was working with I think it's Tony Pastors. So Les Snead, like I said, he's kind of the front-facing GM that everybody sees. Pastors is kind of more business-ish side, football operations part of it. So could be interesting to see the Vikings kind of go a certain way like that. Be kind of funny if they did kind of go Rams that way after Kwesi Adofo-Mensah infamously said you never want to go full Rams in his first year as Vikings GM, which is ironic because the Rams are coming off a Super Bowl and so many of their coaching staff was on the Vikings when Kevin O'Connell was hired. So we're going to go into one of the GM candidates who was with the Rams, who is a very popular name for the Vikings. That's John McKay, Rams assistant GM in 2025. He's been with the Rams since 2016, so he even predates Sean McVay. He was there in Jeff Fisher's final season with the Rams. 2025 first season as assistant GM. Previous 4 seasons, he was director of pro personnel and assistant director of pro scouting. He managed all player arrivals and departures for the team, so kind of handled that side of things. He one of his responsibilities too was evaluating all 32 rosters prior to free agency, writing advanced scouting reports for upcoming opponents, and evaluating draft prospects. So you get a lot of uh, pro scouting right here, or a lot of pro front office work here. Also, obviously, you're getting the college scouting here as well, kind of covering all your bases. So, really like the idea of that. Uh, of course, since he was with the Rams since 2016, he has overlap with Kevin O'Connell when O'Connell was offensive coordinator for the Rams in 2020 and 2021. NFL bloodlines, John McKay. He is the son of Rich McKay, who was general manager for the Buccaneers in the early 2000s, and then later on with the Falcons. And then John McKay was, I don't know if it'd be John McKay Sr., but John McKay, if you're an old school football fan, he was a legendary USC head coach, Buccaneers head coach in the early days of the Bucks. So he's got that bloodline working for him. For me, this feels like a very logical move with so many Vikings connections with the Rams prior to the Rams. John McKay would just be one more person. Familiarity, but also has like a fresh look at looking at things, working with Sean McVay, working with Les Snead. Those are some drafts that, the Rams didn't have a first round pick in most of the drafts that McKay would have been a part of. They had it in 2016 with Jared Goff, and then they didn't have another first round pick till what, 2024. And they've actually drafted really, really well. So he's, even they're good rookies, it's not like they're usually just hitting on these high draft picks. Like they're having to pick, later in the rounds as well. So these are late second round picks when they're first finally getting on the board and stuff like that. So interesting. I like this one. He's seen how that power dynamic, that dynamic structure we were just talking about, he's seen how that works firsthand. He has a connection with Kevin O'Connell. He's younger and he does have that scouting background. John McKay is near the top of my list of who I'd want the Vikings to highly, highly consider out of these candidates. But he's not the only guy. But right now, it just feels like he crosses so many boxes. Makes a lot of sense that John McKay could be the Vikings' next GM. Final guy that we're going to go over today is RJ Gillen, 49ers assistant GM. There's a lot of parallels kind of with John McKay having connections with a lot of the Vikings. RJ Gillen, we'll get into that. He has some overlap with some of the Vikings staff as well. He was been with the 49ers since 2015. 2025 was his first year as assistant GM. 2023 2024, he was director of player personnel. 2021 to 2023, he was director of pro personnel. Then he spent 5 years prior to that as pro personnel scout. So there's that scouting background coming up again. The 49ers website notes specifically that he worked with the coaching staff and other departments to establish consistency in scouting process and alignment in organization. Seems like this is like a really big thing that Kwesi Adofo-Mensah just really struggled in. He always talked about collaboration, but from all accounts, it sounds like there was a massive disconnect between the scouting side of the Vikings organization since 2022 and the coaching side. So RJ Gillen specifically tasked with this to the point where it is in his 49ers biography on the team website. He applied data to team and scheme specific evaluations, and he overlapped in 2016 with Kevin O'Connell, who was a part of the 49ers coaching staff. This is part of why O'Connell was hired by Kwesi Adofo-Mensah in 2022. They overlapped with 49ers. RJ Gillen is another guy. It is. I still don't exactly know what Kevin O'Connell did that year because all I've ever seen is that his title was special projects. So I don't know exactly what that means, but it must have been enough for him to get an offensive coordinator job the very next year with Washington. One more thing with RJ Gillen, a couple more things. Graduated from Marquette School of Law in 2014 with a focus on sports law. That was after he spent 4 years with LSU. Played as a receiver, depth receiver for LSU from 2007 to 2010, where he was part of that 2007 BCS National Championship team. So much younger guy. Must be in his later 30s. I didn't get his exact age. I think it was 36, 37. The math is math in somewhere. But RJ Gillen, a lot of experience, working his way up from the scouting side. This would be another guy who's kind of seen firsthand this kind of power dynamic. He'd fit in pretty well, I think, with Rob Brzezinski. The only issue would be like 49ers haven't really drafted very well in recent seasons. How much of a part of that did RJ Gillen play? Did John Lynch just really, really, call the shots there? Did Kyle Shanahan just have another massive role? Like, I'm pretty sure those two have a lot to say. I don't know where RJ Gillen stands in that. I don't know just how much power he has, even as assistant GM in 2025, when those other two have been at the top of the food chain since 2017. So maybe he's seen how things have gone. And he's just seen, like, okay, that's not how you do things. This is how we should have been doing things for so long. Obviously, the 49ers have been really good since 2017, and Gillen has been a part of that. I would just hope that he's able to kind of change the way that you know they were doing draft evaluations, and if he were to be hired, really take to what Kevin O'Connell is saying or Brian Flores, like if they're actually good at their draft evaluations, and hopefully improve upon what we saw from the 49ers over the past 5 or 6 seasons. So that's all I got for today, guys. Tomorrow, I'm going to go over some Dominique Orange tape. Uh, kind of listen to all the rookies at minicamp speak at their press conferences. Kind of a nice way to see another peek behind their personality. But I also watched some Dominique Orange tape, third round pick, defensive tackle out of Iowa State. I watched one of his games, and he displayed his size, his power, and his quickness, which is very crazy for a guy named Big Citrus. Might even go over a few of the other draft picks that the Vikings had as well. And we should start getting some more uh, nuggets on some schedule updates. Schedule is supposed to be released, I think, to Wednesday, but some of the teams are already starting to break some news on who they are playing. A couple of games are getting highlighted, some primetime games. So we'll see if we have any updates for you with the Viking schedule tomorrow. So if you haven't already, like and subscribe. You can get these updates tomorrow when they happen from me. This is Vikings Latest. I'm Cole Smith. Have a good one. Skull Vikings.